What is going on, YouTube? ModzvilleUSA back with another video, and I can hardly wait. I've been wanting to get to this for quite some time, and I finally have a little bit of time for a personal project. And this is going to be the first episode, and hopefully a long line of episodes of legendary Modchips. We're starting it off today with a coveted, hard to get DMS4 Pro. I got a couple of these in a trade recently, and we're going to be installing it in a Japanese midnight blue PS2 fat here. This is a I don't know if it's a V9 or a V10, but it is a 50,000 model, likely V9, but we'll see. So we're gonna put this in the we're gonna install this in the PS2, and we're also going to install the Matrix Picfix and show you around. Check it out. This has ToxicOS built in, which is I believe it's a modified version of HD Loader. If you're familiar with OPL, similar to that, probably antiquated by today's standards. You just use OPL and be cool, but you know, the ToxicOS, it's a nice UI. It's very cool, and it'll obviously give us the standard PS2 Modchip features of region free as well as backup support. So we're just gonna chill out. This isn't gonna be a guide. I'm just, you know, we're gonna do some sexy soldering, and then I'm gonna show you around, and we're gonna check out what this guy can do. It's a mystery to me. This one is a little flawed here, as you can see. I've got some ones in better condition, but I'm going to be installing the one in the worst condition. It's got one rip pad here, which we can easily bypass and solder directly to this component right here. So it's not that big of a deal. No idea if this bad boy works or not, but we're going to install it and see what's up. So I'm going to tear this bad boy down. I'm going to spare you that, but in the meantime, have a word from our very first sponsor. A huge thank you to today's sponsor, PCBWay. Not only do they offer PCB manufacturing, but they now offer CNC and 3D printing services as well. I've gotten PCBs for many of my products and projects manufactured by PCBWay before. The website is super easy to use, and the quality and turnaround time is amazing. Very swag, very handsome. I like it. Thanks again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the show. Alright gang, so here is the diagram. I've got it pulled down. I do have a V9, not a V10. And I've been digging around with this chip for a couple minutes trying to figure out where I want to mount it. And I believe, looking at everything, right about here seems like the best bet. Okay, so here's the board where our BIOS wiring is going to be, and those all connect to these pads here. The other ones are going to be coming from the bottom of the board, popping up right about here. Guess I'm going to have them go over this chip. This will be their final destination here. So I'm thinking a piece of double-sided tape on this bad boy. Line it up like this. Now it's kind of going to be floating. It's only going to be secured right here. So I might use a bit of hot glue on the corners here. I gotta figure something out. But yeah, I'm thinking right about here. It's pretty nice. I might just go straight glob of hot glue in these corners here. Just pop it down if I ever need to remove it. Just use some rubbing alcohol, loosen it all up. Yeah, so I'm going to plan to route it there, and we're not going to be mounting it until every wire is done, just because I don't want to, you know, mount it and then realize, oh shit, I need to get in there for the Picfix or whatever. We're just going to wire everything first and then mount it. So yeah, let's start wiring shit up. Okay, gang, I changed my mind. I looked at the diagrams. We can go ahead and mount it, no problem. But first, a little bit of maintenance here. Get that 20-year-old battery out of there. Let's swap it in with a fresh one. Very nice. Well, alright, ladies and gentlemen. Went ahead and mounted this bad boy right here. Use a glob of hot glue, and I swapped it out for one of the ones without rip pads, just in case. I don't want to install it to find out that you know, something's sketchy and I gotta swap it out. It'll look a little bit nicer for the video anyway, so I'll clean this up. I'm gonna shut up. Let's chill out and wire it up. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are working at 2 times speed here. ModzvilleUSA. I'll just comment here and there. Obviously, we're doing a bit of cleaning, a little bit of foreshadowing. That cleaning ain't gonna really cut the mustard, but I'll tell you about that when we get there. So I'm just pre-tinning the pads for the BIOS wiring here. Loaded up the soldering iron. Just a quick touch to each pin will do the job. Now I'm following the traces from the diagram to the actual pin, as it looks much nicer if you solder everything directly to the chip. You can have a much tighter, you know, you can really control your cables better when they're all going to one chip. Not mandatory, it's purely aesthetic really, but I try to make these look nice. It keeps it fun. This one's giving me some trouble here. If you end up like that, just load up a bit more solder on your tip. It'll typically solve any of that nonsense. That's a good one. Alright, and here's where we train the wire with the tweezers. Since I am using 38WG KSGER wire, really the only way to go for one of these, and pretty much any install that allows it. KSGER wire is very trainable like this, so you can really mold it the way you want it to. The stranded like silicone wire you see out there, like we do use 28WG silicone for power and ground, but the KSGER is just much nicer looking for a job like this. Look at that, just all kind of fits into place. We're just using the tweezers to train it, let it do its thing, get it formed nicely like that. Oh yeah, look at that. and I like going not only for aesthetic reason, like the back and forth wiring, like the red, yellow, it is aesthetic, but it's also kind of helps you keep track of which wire you're working with. Yeah, it's helpful as well as pleasing on the eyes, you know. And this is where it gets a bit tedious, is just trying to train your wires the way you want them to go. So you can do the right angle method with the tweezers, and if you just want a bit more of a soft curve, you just kind of push it down with your finger, pull the wires in place, and just kind of line them up. And then we use an adhesive to lock it in. So I use both in this video. I've got two adhesives I really like. One is the UV resin. It's the Rapid Fix. You pour a little on and you use UV light, but as you can see, right when I go to film a video, I run out of the stuff. So it's really not. It's much more watery than it usually is, because it's just the end of the bottle here, and it doesn't really cut the mustard at all. And you can see it kind of like squirts a bit on the board, because it's just like, yeah, there it goes. There it goes. I assure you, this stuff is pretty nice when it's not the end of the bottle like this. It's too much. It's not that big of a deal. But the only point of this is to keep the wires together. We're making a DIY ribbon cable, essentially. So in order to do that, we need to lock these wires together. UV resin's nice because it does not get chalky at all. With super glue, it can get very chalky. But for a super glue, the one I really like is Loctite with a brush. I will try to remember to link that down below. Just keep in mind with the Loctite, you do not want to mix it with IPA. So if you're going to clean it afterwards, just don't get any of your rubbing alcohol mixed with the super glue, because it will become chalky. And it can also become chalky if you touch it or move it around while it's drying. You just got to be mindful of that chalkiness there. But yeah, I recommend the UV resin over Loctite for sure if you've got a nice UV lamp. Has the potential to look nicer, you know. It's very discreet. I also want to mention here, for keeping the wires together, it's really no big deal, except for when you have a lot of components like underneath the wire. Could help to use like a little piece of paper, cardboard to have your wires on, so just to keep them a bit more tidy, so you're not dodging a bunch of components on the board. It's another neat little trick. And that's the wire for PS1 support, I believe. That's a nice joint. This will be our reset. here's power and ground, so we're going to use 28 AWG instead of 30. It's just good practice. It is strange because it is only 3.3 volts, but you know, you can get some weird results if you use 30 AWG for power on these ones, so step up the gauge by 1 and you'll be fine. As you can see, I'm running the wire underneath that IC, the legs of that IC right there. And you don't actually need to tin all of these. I believe it's Q, R, and S do not get connected. Here I'm just trying to route that power wire along the legs of that Sony IC there, just to keep it kind of tidy, nice and taut. Go A is power on this one. We just peel the wires one at a time and connect them right up to the pads there. So I just kind of do a little circle motion to burn the insulation off. Clean your tip after doing that. It's just a little too, you know, if you want to go balls deep and try using toenail clippers to clip the wires, then you can, but we're doing it so short that if we accidentally clip the wire, it's just going to be a really bad time. Not worth the risk, in my opinion. I just burn off the insulation for these. It's not the most ideal, but it's more ideal than accidentally snipping a wire when trying to trim it back, which, depending on your wire, this wire is very easy to, it's kind of hard wire to strip. It's easy wire to accidentally clip if you're using toenail cutters, so I just burn it off. It's the better choice, in my opinion, for this situation. It's like Twizzlers, dude. Just peel them back. Oh, looks like I cut the rest of the BIOS wires. So here we're doing ground. And that goes to B on this one. Now, like a dummy, hindsight's 2020. I'm kind of covering up one of the wires I need here for the Picfix, or not the wire, but the points I need. So, if you're doing a Picfix, keep that in mind, because I have to kind of slide underneath all this wiring later to get that hooked up. That looks pretty good. Nice. Okay, now all of these pads here control the disk drive. Disk drive controller. This will be your region free, your backup support, etc. We're just scraping them away to expose these little vias here. We shall tin them up, solder some wires, and try to make it look nice. Same old story, different part of the board. Alright, so tin up those vias. Very nice. You just wire them up. So you want to keep your leads as short as you can. Make sure you route them in a way to where you're not going to have leads bridging other vias, because that would be no good. They can be a bit of a pain to tin, but just make sure they're nice and give them a little wiggle test too. These traces are pretty decent. You're not gonna kind of really have to try to rip those traces up. Just be careful. You don't want to over wiggle, you know. Some nice joints. We don't want to clean up that flux. It is no clean, but it's fairly sticky stuff. It gets burnt. You just want to clean it, you know. And now we do some cable management here. So you want to be mindful of the screw holes. You do not want to route your wires over those. That is no bueno. The curved tweezers really are a must for this. Not only for getting hairs off the board, but for training them wires. And here we are using the Loctite super glue. Whatever you do, do not use Gorilla Glue. That shit gets super chalky. It's no bueno. No bueno at all. The wire and the glue really go a long way in making this look nice. I'll have all of that linked below if you want to try this at home. So I routed it up here, top of that main Sony chip there. Now we just simply connect them and we're good to go. And there she is. Looking pretty good. Now since it's a V9, we're going to install a Picfix as well. I have some of these little Picfixes for sale on the mod shop if you need one. I've got them for V9s, V10s, and V12s. And in case you don't know, I've got a video on it, but what it will do is these consoles have an issue where if you have like a burn disk or a disk that's scratched up, it can cause your Mechacon to crash, and then your laser just goes AWire and essentially just fries itself. What the Picfix does is it's programmed to detect that crash, and if that happens, your console just puts itself in standby mode instead of killing your laser. So it's very nice. Definitely recommended, even on a non-modded V9, V10, or V12 PS2. Just 4 wires, easy peasy. last wire. Hey, very nice. There she is, ladies and gentlemen. Would you look at that? Nice and pretty. Okay, so with the chip installed, here it is when we're running from the browser, booting a disk. This is a PS2 disk, and look at that. Got the nice Toxic logo there on our PS2 splash screen. Very nice. Booted right up into the game. It's a Japanese game. And as you can see, if we put in a PS1 disc, that boot logo will be intact, unlike many of the Matrix Infinity clones, like the Modbo, everything except for the Matrix Infinity 2.0s that I have is missing that. And here's the big one, ToxicOS. Now I went ahead and flashed this to the Modchip using some software. I used FreeMcBoot to get into here. So ToxicOS is essentially a custom version of HD Loader that was made specifically for the DMS4 Pro Modchips. So OPL, if you're familiar with that, it's similar to that, but boots straight into it, so no memory card, nothing else. It's booting, it's like essentially booting OPL straight from the Modchip, which is fucking really cool. I would love to see that in a modern Modchip for the PS2, one that would utilize OPL instead of ToxicOS. But yeah, this is a badass little piece of software here. Whole point of having one of these DMS4 Pros. So we've got all of our basic Modchip settings here. Nothing too crazy, just going through it. Force NTSC, DVD, DL support, all that kind of jazz that you would expect from a PS2 Modchip. The ToxicOS is where the fun happens. Now, I have this in my Slim, so I don't have the IDE mod installed yet. I do plan on doing that. We've got our memory card here. We browse to the memory card, boot some homebrew up just from that. And once I have the IDE mod, I will have a full library of games here internally. On this is now a PS2 Slim. We'll get into that in a minute. This is no longer on the fat. This is on a 70K V12 Slim. And yeah, once it's IDE mod, I'll have all the games. For now, I just got the homebrew on my memory card, and we're booting Mechapoon up just to show you that it totally works. Got a nice file browser, nice and clean. We can still get into the PS2 browser if we wanted to. And yeah, it's very, very awesome Modchip. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking around. Now I just want to kind of go over the troubles I had in doing this. If you follow me on Twitter, you will know that this job wasn't as straightforward as just installing the chip and being good to go. This ended up being what I thought was initially going to be like a 2-hour, just install the chip, shoot the video, edit it later kind of a job. Ended up being like about 3 days of like full-blown troubleshooting. I probably within 3 days I probably worked on this for like 24 hours. It was kind of fucking insane. And here's the deal. So I got 2 chips here. Started with a total of 3. I think I initially installed this one. Installed it. First one I installed, there was a red screen called the red screen of death. It's a solid red screen. Put an image up. I took a picture of it. Followed some old guides from way back in the day, After Dawn forum, like super old forum, of people having that issue, and then you was able to get into recovery mode by pushing reset 3 times. Use free McBoot to get into the flashing software to flash ToxicOS. It ended up working, and then it would stop working. And that was pretty much my experience with all of these. The other 2 I installed, they worked right away. They were on like 0.1 toxic, not ToxicOS, but the toxic BIOS. Obviously, with these, you want to get on ToxicOS because it supports it, and that's kind of the main feature of the DMS4 Pros. Then I'd flash it, and it would either start black screening, or it would like work for a bit, then I'd come back and it would be black screening. Very frustrating. Ended up reflowing these chips multiple times, and this one here, I got it to work, but it would essentially it's overheating. Like it would, or not this one, but this one that's less fucked up. It works, boots into ToxicOS, play around in that for a little bit, boot up some games, you turn it off or you reset it, and it starts black screening. But if you put it in standby mode, come back to it in like 10-15 minutes, it works again. It's consistent. It works, and then once you start using it while it's on, you hit reset and it's gonna black screen. So it's not retro gamer stuff. Kind of put it nicely on Twitter that it's not like overheating in the traditional sense, but there's some sort of thermal expansion as the chip warms up. One of the joints loses contacts. Now I've reflowed each of these multiple times. This one, definitely going to give it another reflow at some point to try to figure that out. This one is in the state, you can see those jumper wires there because I've removed the flash memory. And when you clean the pads on these, once you remove the chip, some of them just melt away as you're cleaning them up. You're not feeling those pads get ripped, they're just super brittle. Flash memory, I believe, is fucked because it can get into recovery mode. It can flash it flashed the chip initially, but every time I go to flash ToxicOS, it just instantly fails all the way through. Reflowed it a million times, not working. So I ordered replacement flash chips that should do the job. This one, it's technically working, but it's not ideal that if you use it and reboot it doesn't work until you let it cool down. So I'm going to reflow the shit out of it maybe a couple more times and see if that sorts out the janky joints issue. But yeah, I'm thinking, let me know in the comments if you would like to see kind of like a My Mate Vince style, like, can we fix it for these 2 dead chips. The third one took a lot of reflows, but I actually did manage to get it working perfectly, consistently on ToxicOS. That's where you saw all that footage. That thing's beautiful, it works, and it's no longer installed in the one that we installed it in the video. I ended up installing it in a V12 ceramic white slim. And I'm eventually going to get around to doing the IDE to SD mod on that, so stick around if that's something you would like to see here. Yeah, I'm stoked I got one working, but holy fuck, this was way more time consuming than I initially thought. It was not simply install the chip, there's already a lot to it, and it's in the slim essentially because when you have to like troubleshoot, when you do all this shit to the chip, and then you want to test your work, when you're doing that, after about the 5th time you do that on a FAT, you know, you got to redo the shell, you got to install the power supply, troubleshooting a FAT and tearing it apart and putting it back together over and over and over again is a nightmare. So after maybe about 10 times of banging my head against the wall, tearing it open, putting it back together, I realized I'd probably just be faster to wire up a slim than constantly. Maybe not faster, but significantly less unpleasant to do all the troubleshooting in a slim, because you just install it, and yeah, you could just, you know, just plug it in after troubleshooting it and be good to go. You don't need to tear it apart over and over again. So that's why I ended up in the slim. So the FAT we will be installing, we're going to end up installing a Matrix Infinity, maybe the next episode, a legit Matrix Infinity or a crystal chip or something different than the DMS4 Pro. But yeah, just wanted to rant about how brutal this job ended up being compared to, you know, what you saw in the video of installing it and it just working. There was a lot of banging my head against the wall behind the scenes with these. But I got one working, and we're going to get these two working perfectly eventually. Whether you want to see me do that in a off-the-cuff video or just do it off-screen, whatever it is, I'm eventually going to make these bad boys work. They're super fucking rare, and we're not going to let these go to waste. We're going to get these up and running and give them a nice home at some point. But yeah, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you liked it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. Whatever you want to do, free country, and I'll smell you later.